House Speaker Kevin McCarthy will be speaking at the New York Stock Exchange this morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. McCarthy posted a video message over the weekend declaring that America's credit card limit is maxed out. Watch this.
Gave your child a credit card and they kept hitting the limit. You wouldn't just raise the credit limit. You'd sit down with them and help them to figure out where they could cut back on spending. The same thing is true of our national debt.
The White House, though, slamming McCarthy ahead of the speech, putting out this statement. Speaker McCarthy is holding the full faith and credit of the U.S. hostage, threatening our economy and hardworking Americans' retirement. A speech is not a plan. McCarthy just responded on Twitter this morning. He writes this: make no mistake, the longer President Biden waits to be sensible to find agreement, the more likely it becomes that his administration will bumble into the first default in our nation's history. Wow. Joining me right now is Pennsylvania Congressman, Chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, member of the House Oversight, Foreign Affairs, Transportation, and Infrastructure Committees. Scott Perry is here. Congressman, it's great to have you this morning. And I know that Kevin McCarthy is, in many ways, responding to your efforts and your pressure from the Freedom Caucus that you want to see spending levels pulled in. What specifically do you want to see agreed upon?
Well, look, first of all, I think Kevin, the speaker, is going to Wall Street to let them know that the last time America's credit was downrated, it wasn't because of fear of default. It was fear that we were just going to continue to spend at record levels that we couldn't afford, which is what the case is now. As you know, the president has said he's not going to negotiate. At a minimum, we want the rescissions. We want savings up front. So we're talking savings. So we got COVID money sitting out there being allocated but not spent. Why are we raising the debt limit instead of making sure that that money goes towards paying the bill? We got the president's forgiveness of loans, where he forgives and you pays for student loans. Instead of paying that, why don't we pay the bill instead of raising the debt limit? Instead of expanding the IRS to come after every single person, waitresses and gas station people that work at at garages, why is he going after them with the IRS instead of expanding the IRS? How about them just doing their job, and let's let America do their job, and let's save that 87 million IRS agents worth of money. So we want to start with savings up front so that we can lower the cost of whatever the increase in the debt limit is. That's the first place to start. Every single family in America that has a maxed out credit card didn't just go to the bank or the credit card company and say, hey, you've got to increase my limit, is certainly without saying, here's our plan to not get in this situation again. And so the speaker is going to Wall Street to let them know that responsibly, the Republican House-led majority can do that, will do that, and needs Joe Biden, the president, to come and negotiate and so that we can get our spending in line.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But look, how far are you willing to go? Let's face it, you're not getting a willing partner on the other side. He says you're the irresponsible one because you're making the market question whether or not the ceiling will be lifted. Are you going to lift the ceiling?
Look, the House of Representatives isn't going to let the United States default. And let's remember this too, Maria, that there's enough revenue coming in to pay for all the required programs like Social Security and Medicare and things like that. There's enough revenue coming in. So there's not going to be a default on that. And so that rhetoric actually just comes from the Biden administration. You can question the House of Representatives all you want, but there's one person. There's literally one person that can make all this happen, and that's the president of the United States, who said he's not going to negotiate. Who in business, who in Wall Street understands that tactic, who understands that position as a reasonable, responsible position when you've gotten yourself into debt? Name one banker or one financier that says that's a good and solid position. There isn't one.
Yeah. No, you make a lot of good points, but let me turn your attention to look at these Pentagon leaked documents, because we learned a lot from these leaked documents. They revealed that U.S. troops are, in fact, operating inside of Ukraine. I spoke with the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee yesterday, Michael McCall, who's now sanctioned by China. He went to Taiwan. He was on Sunday Morning Futures yesterday. Here's what he said about that. Watch.
I didn't authorize that. There are essentially 70 or so NATO forces, special operators, 14 American. to provide oversight on the military aid that's going into Ukraine to ensure fidelity that it goes to the right place. So that'd be oversight and accountability for weapons going into Ukraine, just simply ensuring accountability and oversight on the weapons going in.
So, Congressman, we learned a lot. A presence of 97 U.S. and allied special operation forces are on the ground in Ukraine, including 14 from the United States. McCall says he didn't authorize that. So is the administration just going ahead over your head and your colleagues' heads to just put troops wherever they want? They also showed us that there's deficiency in Ukraine's munitions, specifically air defense, and training U.S. officials noted this could lead to increased casualties. How damaging was that leak? And what are you going to do about it?
Well, look, I think the leak was horrifically damaging from a number of standpoints, not the least of which is the information within the leak that shows that American service members in uniform service members, Maria, not DOD civilians, not bean counters doing oversight, but uniformed special operating forces in Ukraine. And I would say that's a very dangerous escalation. I don't think most Americans know that. And that most Americans do not approve of that. And then there's the leak itself. Look, starting with James Comey and Secretary Hillary Clinton, leaking appeared to be no problem. So now everybody wants to get on it and be a hero, whether it's Alexander Vindman or anybody else. They haven't seen any consequences. This is damaging to the United States' credibility. It's damaging and potentially dangerous for lives on the ground. And by the way, what are those lives doing on the ground of American servicemen in uniform, men and women in uniform? It is unacceptable. And so, look, we have a rogue regime, whether it's on the southern border or whether it's in Ukraine. They don't bother following the law. They're not interested. And the only thing that Congress has is the power of the purse, which goes back to the original discussion of not only the debt ceiling, but then the upcoming appropriations. We can't make them follow the law, but we can sure make sure they don't have any money to disobey and not follow the law. And that's what we need to do.
Well, that's what we want to follow. You're using the appropriations process. You've got 12 appropriations bill. You're going to hold back funding for these agencies?
We certainly are. We certainly must. If they're not going to bother following the law, there's nothing we can do.
Okay.
We're not the police. We're not investigators. The only thing we have, as you know, the founding fathers said, is the power of the purse. And we've been reluctant to use it. I don't know why, but we need to absolutely cut their funding back. If they can't be bothered to follow the law and follow the will of the American people, then the American people shouldn't, it's tax day, right? Think about where your taxes are going today and the things that you don't want to pay for yet are forced to by a government by an administration that literally won't follow the law.
Yeah, good point. Taxes are due tomorrow. All right, Congressman, thanks very much. Good to see you. We'll be watching all of that.
Thank you.